Okay, so let me open this mapping sheet. So today we are going to discuss on this mapping sheet how to create how we are going to create the mapping based on this mapping sheet. Cleanse functions we almost covered, but a lot of cleanse function we have not covered yet. For example, the reject functionality, the lookup functionality, that will directly cover in the mapping. So instead of covering there, we'll directly cover this in the mapping. So let's start this requirement one by one. Let's try to understand. Um, in this requirement, you'll learn a lot of things. Okay, the different methods of cleansing and all that. So we'll start. So first of all, what is a mapping and what's a mapping sheet? Mapping is something that loads data from a landing table to the staging table. That is the definition of mapping in MDM. In ETL, a mapping is a generic thing that loads from a source to target. That's the generic thing. But in here, it's from landing table to the staging table. So this is my staging table. This is the party staging table. This is the address and this is the contact. So this is my staging table, and these are all the important columns that are there in the staging tables. It doesn't mean that these are the only columns. There are other system columns that are there, which I'm not interested because I'll not map those system columns. For example, let me open a mapping. Okay, so we created this long time back. Okay, this data type is, I can see still it's float, but that's okay. So we have to change it. Let me change it quickly. Party ID is number here. Okay, number, it's there everywhere. So you have any doubts on earlier sessions like the cleanse list? If you have any doubts, then you can ask. This will take around 1-2 minutes.
Quick question, Sunil, right? From performance point, comparing against Power Center, do we have to do anything, to like tune things? Does it cache anything? Like yesterday when you were saying, I was wondering it doesn't. I don't think it caches anything, right?
No, it
Even when you say
doesn't cache
it
anything.
does.
This is a thin
Okay.
client tool. I mean, it caches, but not much. But
If I use
mostly,
a
see the performance in MDM is mostly from the database point of view, database side. So whatever performance you are facing, right, that you have to rectify in the database. There isn't much in here.
yeah. Like there's no stats on anything. We see how a mapping is running, and what
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of.
we can see that is there in the logs.
Oh, that's there in the logs. Okay.
Yeah, that's there in the logs. You can get a
We
very
haven't taken.
very detailed log you can get where you can see everything. For example, when a matching is executed or a merge with the trust is executed. So what are all the SQL statements that will be executed? Because basically this tool executes everything in the Oracle. So whatever you want to accomplish, everything is executed as queries in Oracle. So you have to fine tune those queries. That is the strategy of performance tuning. Performance tuning in here, it's a very wide subject. The reason is many components are involved. So it's not only this MDM tool, database, the application server. There are many different components. That's why the tuning is bit different and it's slightly complex. Power center tuning is very easy. I mean, I would say it's really not tough because if you see get logs, then in the run statistics you'll find everything. You'll find what is the problem and all that, the busy percentage, everything. But here it will be slightly different and slightly complicated. uh, there is one document for performance tuning. I think I shared with everyone. This would be another document, not this one. Okay, I have to check. There are This document is becoming very big. This is also a document, but this is more specific to DB2. There is a more generic document related to performance tuning. I don't know where it went away. Okay, I'll check it later. So that document contains details of all the levels of tuning that you can do. I mean, many different types of tuning you can do. So that contains all the levels of tuning.
Sunil, this is Murli.
Yeah, Murli.
Yesterday, when I tried to go to the stage table and get into the settings is not enabled for me, even though I tried to get the right lock.
What is set? What settings?
On the stage table
Uh-huh. Oh, settings.
properties,
Oh, setting in the stage table settings. That is what, right? I told you, you have to create a mapping, then only it will be enabled.
oh, okay, until then it will not be
No, not be
enabled.
enabled. I told you that they clearly itself. Once you create a mapping, for
Mm-hmm.
example, here it's not enabled. Sorry, for CKR it will be enabled because I created a mapping. But for MLO, no mapping is there, right? So it should be disabled.
Okay, yeah, it's grayed out.
It is disabled MLO. Okay. So you can try to create a mapping and then it will be enabled.
Okay.
Sunil, this is just an advisory question. So when we look at all the cleanse functions, we have a lot of functionality within the MDM hub. So why do we require, like you said, mentioned that in certain cases we might require IDQ,
No, no,
right?
actually, I mean, you feel like it's a lot. Actually, it's not a lot. If you have worked with IDQ or Power Center, then you can easily, and once you go through this, then you will say that this is actually less. This looks like a lot,
Okay,
but it is not an exhaustive list.
okay, got
Because
it.
once I tell you, once I cover this whole thing, right, then you will also say that, I mean, this is not an exhaustive because there are a lot of requirement that cannot be covered with these functions. Anyway, we'll start
Okay,
now. So let's start. See, this is the landing table, this is the staging table. When you create a mapping, by default, this is the structure. Okay, so you need to map it. So you have to map it. You should do it blindly. Blindly means you will get a document from the business analyst that will be called as the mapping sheet. Mapping sheet, you will get it for every mapping that you need to create. Okay, so you do not have to apply your, I mean, applying brain is not a big thing. The thing is the data, the business analyst is responsible for providing this document and the developer is responsible for creating the logic for that. So you once let's say you get this requirement, you get this document, then you first of all study what are the things you need to do. For people who are in ETL already, they like Power Center, they already know what's a mapping document and that. But anyway, see, this is the target table. So this is the target table for me. Normally, I'm again telling you, mapping sheet, you will have mapping sheet for every mapping, but because this is a training class, so I have given the name as STG party, a generic name. Okay, so you will see that for every staging table you will have a common you will have a mapping document. Now let's assume this staging table is same as this one. So what are the different columns you have? You have total 7 columns are listed here, but here you see there are a lot of columns here. It means that these columns you do not need to map these columns. Okay, so you just leave these columns as default. They are used for internal purpose. Okay, so you only need to map the columns that are mentioned in this document. Okay, that are mentioned in this document. Only that you need to map. So the first object is PKSRC object. Now let's try to understand what we need to map, that is PKSRC object. PKSRC object. So how we need to derive this PKSRC object? Let's see the logic. The logic is the mapping value from, it is taking the value from the landing table. Okay, and then what value it is taking? It's taking the primary key and primary key from the source. Okay, so that's the primary key from the source and account ID. Sorry, this is party ID. One second. Let me change it, everyone. This changes to party ID. I keep on changing the model and everything in every class so that even I do not feel bored. So that's why. So this is the party ID from the landing table. So what I need to do, I need to do it like this. But the problem is there is a cleanse expression involved, that is I need to trim it before I load it to the target. So this is a very simple logic. This is not complicated, it's a simple logic, but this is not correct. What you need to do is you need to trim it. To trim it, you right click and say add function. You go to string function and say trim and say okay. You connect this and then you connect it to this. So this completes the first requirement. This is a very easy one-to-one requirement. This is not a difficult one. This one is very easy. You just need to trim it. You just need to trim the party ID and then put it from the landing table into the staging table. So that's easy. And row ID object, this row ID object, you do not need to do anything. So that is internally used, but this does have a special usage. This row ID object match, this has a special usage. Uh, I'll mention it as to be used. Sorry, to be used in load by row ID object. This is also a very important concept, but this is quite advanced concept, this one. This I'll tell you once we complete all the basic concepts. This concept will help you in doing data fixes, this load by row ID object. But anyway, we will not understand much now. We'll talk about that later. So now coming to the name, see row ID object, you do not need to row ID object. The exact is row ID object matched. So let me mention it that way. Okay, so row ID object match, that's the exact column. Previously it was row ID, recent version they changed it to row ID object matched, but the functionality remains the same. Now let's talk about name. So name is derived from the name column from the party table. So that is the name here. The name column is nothing but it is coming from the name column here, but I cannot directly connect it. The reason is I have to do some level of cleansing. So I have to clean the data, and then there is some additional requirement also. So to fulfill that, first of all, we have to use cleanse functions to achieve this functionality. Now let's try to understand what we need to do. Remove noise and digits and trim and title case, that one. That is the requirement. So it's already an example is there. Let's say, see, what you need to do is you need to convert. See, just neglect the double quotes. It's only for convention's sake. Okay, just neglect the double quotes. So what we need to convert is you need to convert this input from source. You'll be getting an input like this. So you need to convert this input into something like this. That is, you need to remove that. You need to remove what noise we are removing. What is noise? In a name, noise is nothing but any character, because any character is nothing but it's called as noise for name. For addresses, some characters are permitted. Okay, but for email ID, at the rate of one character is permitted and dot is permitted. Similarly, but for name, no character is permitted. So you need to that is called as noise for name. And digits is permitted in addresses, but it's strictly not allowed for name. So digit is also a noise. That is, we need to remove any of the digits here, and then we need to trim it. Trim means removing the spaces here. So you need to remove this space as well as this space, or any other spaces before and after. And you need to title case. Title case means for the first letter of this needs to be converted to this. So that is our objective. This is the first objective. We need to achieve this functionality. Once that is done, then we need to achieve this functionality. So the first thing, try to understand. Let's try to see how we can achieve this. But before that, okay, first let's see how we can achieve it, then we'll see how we'll implement it. To achieve this, how do I achieve this requirement? First of all, remove noise and digits. So how do I remove noise and digits? Removing noise and digits will be done using cleanse list. Okay, so that is the easiest way to implement, using the cleanse list. Plus, after you do the cleanse list, then you use the trim function. Then after the trim function is done, then you use the title case. title case function. So this is my technical planning on how I'll achieve this functionality. But just try to understand here the logic, this logic whatever I'm creating, you can see that the logic is the same here, okay, and the logic is the same here, and if you see below, here, 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 so the logic is same in 5 different places. You understand, right? We have to use the same logic in 5 different places. So especially in a single mapping, I have to use the same logic for name and I have to use the same logic for alias. So we need to create something reusable, because if I do not create anything reusable, it's like unnecessarily maintenance point of view and for performance point of view, for a lot of things you will face issues. So this concept is similar to power center maplets that you have. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll create a graph function now. In the graph function we'll implement this functionality and we'll call that graph function in the mapping. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's create a graph function. So first, party cleanse is already there. These test functions, I'll remove them later, so not needed. Now let's add, first of all, graph g underscore cleanse name, because I want to clean the name. So that, okay. So just see what I have to do. In a graph, inside a graph function, I need to create this logic. So I just created a graph function and I go here to the graph function, and inside this graph function what I have to do, I have to create a cleanse list, trim, title case. Okay, so what I'll do is I have to create a cleanse list first. Let me create the cleanse list first, which I am going to use it in my graph function. So cl cleanse list, what I'm trying to do, remove noise digits. Okay, so that's simple. Noise means literally any character you can remove. You can do it using regular expression, or to get more control, we'll specify one by one. You can also use these noise filters here, but I'm showing it from the scratch so that you can easily understand. So you add the noises, whatever noise you feel. This is one noise for me. This is a noise. Just add all the noises. Where is hash? Yeah, hash. Similarly, I mean, whatever you feel as noises, you add those things. Dot is also a noise. So these are all the noises. Okay, so let me, later you can add and you can complete this list, because this is not the, you can have brackets, you can have many different characters. You try to add it just using this plus symbol. I'm not concentrating on that. Now let me quickly test it. So let's say I want to test till this much. Let's see if it is working. So sun at the rate of, you can see what is the output and what is the match flag. Match flag is false. Okay, so you can see that it is not working. Why this cleanse function is not working? I told you yesterday that the search type strategy by default is entire. Okay, the search strategy is entire, and entire means it will check if this at the rate is entirely equal to this thing. For example, if I say at the rate only, then you will see that this will work. This is coming as true. But if I give a anything like this, it does not work. So what I need to do, I must change the strategy to anywhere. With anywhere strategy, you can see the replacement is happening, but what is happening, only at the rate of is getting replaced, but hash is not getting replaced. Why? Because that is what we need to do. We want a recursive search. What we want is, we want the first search to happen, that is at the rate. Once that is done, we do not want the process to stop. What we want the process to execute this, everything. We want the process to execute all the cleanse list. So what is the option for that? What did I tell you? The option for that is stop on hit. I told you stop on hit. You can see stop on hit by default is false. Okay, sorry, stop on hit by default is true. Okay, you can check it. This is true. Okay, so see, whenever you see null, it means it is taking the default value. So when I say null, or if it is true, it is the same thing. So you run it, the result is the same. But if I make it false, what will happen now? It will stop on hit means if someone is running, okay, someone is running, if you stop him, what will happen? He will stop his run there itself. But if you do not stop him, he will keep on running and running and running. So that is the same thing here. If stop on hit by default is true, so once the search is done, the process stops there. Okay, but if the stop on hit is false, then it will keep on running and running. Okay, it will keep on replacing from the beginning to the end. So that's the objective, and that is exactly what we want. So if I say stop on hit as false, you will see that this should work. So you can see this sun, this is working properly. But now let's check the full thing. What is the problem with this? Let's check it. So you can see the character replacement is happening very nicely. The characters, all my characters are removed, but the digits are as it is. The digits are not removed. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to implement a logic to remove these digits. Okay, so how do I remove digits? There are many ways I can do it, like this, like say 1, or and then next I can put it as 2, but that's not needed because Informatica provides a better method. That better method is using regular expression. So what you do is you click on this. What is the regular expression for number? Okay, this is for the regular expression for number, and you make sure that the match type is regular expression. There are three match types. SQL match is just like SQL match where you say like, okay, that it's like the like operator. This is of no use because either you use exact match or you use regular expression, because when you use regular expression, it gives you so much freedom that you do not want to use anything else. So regular expression, and I want to replace it with null. Okay, so what is the meaning of this regular expression? The meaning is if it is any character between 0 to 9, that is 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, then replace it with blanks. Okay, so that is the regular expression. You go below. Now go and test it. Okay, so you can see that all my numbers are removed. Okay, so you can see we just implemented the cleanse list scenario. The cleanse list, we just saw how we can do the cleansing using the cleanse list. Just again, small revision I'm doing. We used exact match for these characters. I'm telling you again, even for characters you can also do regular expression match, but I'm going for an exact match because I want more stricter control. Regular expression if you use, then it will filter all the characters, but I want only certain characters to be filtered, and this regular expression is will filter all the names. Okay, sorry, all the digits. So you just remember what we did. We provided input, the search type we provided as anywhere, and the stop on hit we provided it as false. You remember that because remaining things we did not touch it, that is replace all occurrences, strip default value, we did not do anything with that. Okay, so now what we'll do, we'll call this graph function, we'll call this cleanse list inside the graph function. You see how I'm calling it. You go here. Okay, now I'm in where I am in the graph function. What I'll do is I'll call this in here. So this is not like Informatica Power Center where you drag and drop. You don't drag and drop, but it's similar only. So you just say add function, and you add the function that we just created. So g cleanse name. The what's the problem? Cannot be added to the graph. This is strange. This is the first time I'm seeing some message like this. 1 second, let me try to add. Yeah, this is adding. No, this is a graph function. That's fine. 1 second. This cleanse list, it is adding, but why this? It's not adding this cleanse list. This Informatica actually has lot of small bugs. This, oh yeah, it was not allowing now it is allowing. So if you face any issues like that, you have to be a bit patient. That's the only solution. So what I do now is I connect the input to the input, because the Sunil value that I passed here, that is, I just tested it. So when you test it, you need to pass the value, right? But in the real time, the value will be passed from the source. So this is from the source. Now remember, what did I tell you? What do I need to pass to the search type? To the search type, I need to pass anywhere value. Otherwise, this is not going to work. Okay. So you right click, you say add a constant, because I want to pass a constant value, that is anywhere. So that's why I have to add a constant. So add constant string and say anywhere and say okay. Now you just pass this value to here. It's a very simple thing. You try to understand. Here I'm passing the value from the source, but here I'm passing a constant value, because that is the requirement. You can, if you want, you can also pass it from the source, but it doesn't make any sense. I mean, you can create and you can pass it, but there's no point. If you want, you can also pass. That's fine. You can create something like anywhere from the source and you can pass, but that's like bad design. Replace all occurrences not needed. We did not use it, so we'll leave it. Stop on hit. If you remember, stop on hit. 1 second. Stop on hit. We have passed false to stop on hit. But remember, when I click on this, you can see the Boolean. So the data type here is Boolean. The here it was string, so I passed a string to a string. But here I cannot connect this to this. You just check it. I cannot connect. What it is showing, cannot automatically convert from string to Boolean. So what I need to do is, when I create a constant, okay, I need to make the data type as Boolean. So choose Boolean, okay. And what do I need to choose? I need to choose false, okay. Just connect this to this, so that you can see my cleanse list is almost complete. I need to accomplish these two requirements, that is trim plus title case. But first of all, let me test this cleanse list here itself. What I'll do,
Sunil, this is Venkat here. We already have all those values inside the function, right? Why do you need to add anywhere, false, all this stuff?
no, anywhere, just see this. I'm testing here. You understand, right? By default, it does not have any value. It will take its default value if you do not pass it. The default is entire.
Okay.
The search type value of a cleanse list could be entire, anywhere, word. It could be 3 values. If you do not pass anything to this, if you do not pass, it will take the default value. Default value is entire.
Okay.
And when I actually tested it, I have given anywhere here in and I tested it, because that is testing. First of all, you test it,
Okay.
and whatever you feel is correct. Because why did I test it? I wanted to find out what are the parameters I need to give. So once I tested it, I need to go here, and
Okay.
this is the actual stuff.
Okay.
The testing is not an actual
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
Okay, here I'm
Uh,
giving the
uh,
value. If I do not give the value, you will see that um, it will not work as expected. For example, see this. Now I'll quickly test it. Remember, when you are developing the logic here, you remember to test it at each and every step, because this is not like Power Center, which is a very nice debugger. That's not true. This does not have an exhaustive debugger. If you face any issues, it's very difficult to backtrack. Okay, so you can see this, the requirement is working fine. But if I remove this, save it, and if I go here, the it will not work as expected. Okay, you can see this is not working. Okay, this is not working. This is, so that's why I'm connecting this. And you can see my first requirement is done, and my remaining requirement is I need to trim it, then I need to title case it. These two are very simple functions. What you need to do is add function, just trim and then connect the output to the input and then add another function, that is title case. If you are new, then you don't create big logics, you create small logic, you test it. Once you create every logic, okay, then you keep on adding new features. Okay, if you create a big logic like this and then you test it, if you face any issues, it's very difficult to backtrack. Okay, now this completes my uh, first phase of the name requirement, but let me again test it to make sure that even I can test this whole thing as well, because this should also work because I have removed the hashes. So you can see this is being converted to a proper name, that is Sunil Mohanty. So this is working fine. So that completes the requirement number 1, that is cleanse expression. But still we are not done because we have to implement this logic, this logic. But first of all, let's complete this requirement. You can see that we just created a cleanse function. Okay, that a graph function, we just created it, but we need to use that graph function in the mapping. Now let's go back to the mapping. You say add a function, you add that particular function here. Okay, so name, I hope you're understanding. If you're not able to get it, then you can ask me. Okay, so but this is not complete requirement. The complete requirement states that this is done, first thing is done, and we'll use the same logic in the below. But first of all, let's go step by step. Okay, first let's complete the requirement for name. The requirement of the name additional details states that if the name is null, then I need to reject it. Okay, so that's the logic I have to implement. And before I implement, again the same thing. The same thing is, you can see this piece of logic is used here, it is used here, sorry, not here, it is used here, here, and almost like in 2-3 places it is used. Okay, it's the same logic. So what do I need to do? I need to make this component reusable. Okay, because see, the logic that I created inside this, I could have created directly here also. There is no limitation, you can create it. But what will happen from maintenance point of view, that's not good. So what we'll do is we'll again create a graph function to implement this logic, and then we'll call this graph function in here. Okay, so now let's see how we can implement this. First of all, let me go to the cleanse functions. If you're unable to understand, if you have any doubts, you can ask me. What I'll do, I'll create a new graph function stating that g underscore, g is for graph. Okay, it's just a name convention, it's not mandatory or something. If you like, you put it. If you don't like, you don't put it. You put it, that's a better method of coding. So g underscore reject nulls, correct, because I'm trying to give meaningful names to the cleanse expression. So reject g reject null values, or you can say null values or null, whatever it is, that's fine. Say okay. Now how do we implement this? First of all, before you implement, just plan it. How do I plan it? What is my requirement? Just keep a track of requirement. Okay, because to be a successful developer, you don't have to be a scientist. To be a successful developer, whatever is written in the requirement, you should what you say, you should implement that requirement. You should not apply much brain over that. I mean, on that you apply it, not over that, because if something is written, why this is written in that manner, that you should not worry about that, because that's the job of a business analyst. So what is the requirement? If name is null, reject. So there are two things involved here. First, check the name, okay, for null. That is the first thing. Because see, if, I mean, how do you first of all start making what you say, let's say you have some iron ore, okay, and that you want to convert it to iron. So first of all, how will you know that the iron ore contains iron? So you have to do some check, right? So first of all, we'll do the check and then we'll convert the iron ore to iron. Okay, so first we'll do the check, and once the check is done, then reject using reject function. Okay, reject using reject function, that's the logic. So first of all, to implement this, check the name for nulls. So let's see how we can implement that. That is using this logic function, that is string null. We have to use this particular function to find out if it is null or not. So let's use this particular function inside this reject null. Add a function, add that this particular function, logic function. Okay, so is string not empty but is string null, because there's a difference between null and empty, both are not same. So you connect this. Now what is the output? The output, if it is coming as null, output will be true. You can also check it. If you, okay, the output is boolean anyway, so that's not needed because it's a very simple thing. So if the input is null, then the output will be true, and if it is not null, then it will be false. Now you can see this boolean is meaningless. The reason is the future transformations that you will be using, the future cleanse functions, the input will always be string. So we need to convert this boolean back to string. Okay, so how do we do that? To do it, we use a converter. Okay, for example, add a function. You can see a data conversion. Go to the data conversion. Format boolean converts a boolean to a string. Okay, converts a boolean to a string. So what I'm doing is I'm converting this true and false into something meaningful. Okay, so format boolean, this is a very simple function. What it does is you connect this to this. So, and let me create it, then you can easily understand. This is very easy. Okay, so what I'm doing is, this is very easy stuff I'm doing here, and output, let me connect it to here. So what I'm doing, what is the output of this cleanse function? The output is true or false. It will convert this boolean true or false into, if it is true, it will the output will be null. If it is false, the output will be not null. Okay, the requirement is not complete, but I'll quickly test it. And see the way why I am testing it at each and every step, because I want you to uh, do it in the same manner. Okay, so let's say I give some value, it is coming as not null, and if I do not give any value, that is null, then it is coming as null. So this is expected. So our first thing is done, that is check the name for nulls. So we have checked it, that if the name is null, then it will be null. If it is not null, it will be not null. So this is done.
We should get true or false, right?
True or false, you get it here. I'm converting that back to a meaningful value.
Okay.
It is null and not null. Okay, because the problem is this boolean is not that much useful. Okay, we have to convert it to a string. A string will be used. You learn
Okay.
why we are converting, that also you will learn. Okay, but
Okay.
first, this is 50% of the requirement. Remaining 50% is actually to what we need to do, we need to reject using the reject function, because there are two types of reject. Okay, again I'm telling you, there are two types of reject. One is an automatic reject, one is a manual reject. Okay, you can see here in this document it is clearly mentioned, that is invalid, null, primary key, duplicates, nulls, data type translation error. Okay, in all of these cases, okay, or invalid hub state indicator, any of these cases, data will be automatically rejected, that is automatically. Okay, but now we are talking about manual reject. That is, what is manual reject? I want to reject it manually. Okay, let's say if the country is coming as China, I want to reject it. So that's called as manual reject. So I want to do manually reject it. To manually reject it, you need to use the reject function. This is similar to the abort function that you have in Power Center. Okay, but the usage is completely different. So this is the first part. The second part is what I need to do. if null then reject, if not null then proceed. Correct? This is my requirement, right? If null then do this, if not null then do this. So I am talking about what? This kind of statements are called as conditional statements. So it means this is simple conditional statement. So if I go to the if I get up at um, 6 o'clock in the morning, then I'll do this and I'll do that. If I get up at 9 o'clock in the morning, then I'll do this, I'll directly go to the office. So that is called as conditional execution. So based on a certain condition, you decide what you need to do. So similarly here also, if it is null, then reject it. If it is not null, then proceed. So to implement this logic, we have to use an new functionality we have to use, which I have not spoken of earlier. That is called as a condition. So this is called as conditional execution. So you need to add a condition where we need to implement this logic. This logic what I have mentioned in the notepad, I need to implement this logic using this conditional statement. So you just right click and say add condition. Okay, so you create already case one is there, you rename into null and then add another not null. So two conditions are there, null, not null. If null, do this. If not null, do this. As of now, you can see the logic for null and not null is same. That is what we need to do. We need to, if null, then reject. So we need to implement the reject functionality in the null, and if it is not null, we simply need to proceed. So the not null functionality, sorry, the null functionality, no, we cannot use boolean. That is why I have converted that back to string, because the data type for this, you can see the data type for this is string. When it is gray, the gray color is for string, and this yellow color, this is yellow color, this is for. So why it is not there? That Informatica MD, Informatica, probably they will correct it in future. That's why I told you that this is not an exhaustive cleansing functionality, because in Power Center, if you ask a Power Center guy, then he will simply say that this the it's it should have provided, that MDM should have provided this feature. But anyway, we have to work with whatever it is provided. So if it is null, then reject. So what I'll do now, I'll add a reject functionality here. So right click, add function, okay, and reject functionality. Where is reject? Reject functionality is in here, miscellaneous function, reject. Okay, you need to choose this reject. Okay, say right click, whenever you add a function, right click expanded mode so that you can read it. See, the reject functionality is very simple functionality. Okay, first of all, let me cover this reject function, then I'll come to here. Reject functionality is like, if you pass any value to the reject function, it will simply reject. For example, if I pass any value to this, then if I test it, I'm getting a message, user rejected record, reason value. For example, you can give a reason also, custom reason. Okay, and you test it. Now you can see the reason you're getting it as custom reason. So remember, this function is not anything special. This function is, if you use this function, it will reject the record. Okay, here you are getting a message because I'm testing it, but when you actually run the job, you will not get any message, because that record will be rejected. For example, if you're rejecting this record will be rejected, and that will go to the underscore rej table. Okay, when we run the mapping, then we'll see that. I'll demonstrate that, but as of now, you just remember that. So see, this is a very simple function. It's like, if fire is there, right? If fire is burning, okay, and if you put oil into that, then what will happen? It will burn even more. So this is like that only. So if you use a reject function, if you pass anything, it will burn, so it will simply reject it. That's the simple logic. So what you need to do is, just you need to call the reject functionality in the null. Remember, I do not do anything in the not null, because if I do it in the not null, the reject, what will happen? For not null also it will be rejected. So I don't want to do that. Now say null, go for the null, and you simply connect this value here, and you can give a description here, meaningful. For example, you give add a constant, you say rejecting because the input is null. So this is very simple, rejecting because the input is null, and I am passing this to this text. Okay, and actually it really does not matter if you connect the output of this to the input. It does not matter. If you want to connect, you connect. If you don't want to connect, don't connect, because we will not be using this reject output anyway. Okay, because that's not the objective. And you connect this to this, so what is happening, what is in this uh, link that I have selected, what is the value you'll get? You'll get either null and not null. Okay, so if it is null, this will happen. If it is not null, this will happen. Okay, and you connect the output to this. Really, this does not matter. You, what you do is, you don't connect the output, you directly connect the output input to the output. One second. This might be a bit strange for Power Center developers, because if you develop this kind of code in Power Center, the job will fail. I mean, it will not validate, but this is different. Okay, so now test it. Let's see if it is valid value, output is coming properly. Okay, and if it is let's say, if I do not select anything, if I give a null value, I'm getting a message. So when I run the job, I will not get any message. Okay, directly it will go to the reject table. See, when it goes to a reject table, what is the meaning? When it goes to a reject table, it will not go to the staging table anymore. I'm talking about only that particular row. Okay, that row will go to the reject table. So if it goes to the reject table, it will not go to the staging table. So you can see it's working fine. Now we are almost done with this second requirement. So we need to add these two bit of pieces to complete this requirement. Okay, let's see how we do that. Go to the mappings, you say add a function, you add that reject function that we just created here. See, reject null. What I do is, I'll pass the name directly here, and the output I really do not care, because I'm not going to use the output here. I'm not going to use the output here, so this completes my requirement. So what will happen, the data will flow into here as well as here, but if it is rejected, the record, the output will be discarded. This output will also be discarded. Okay, so it's a double flow, so do not get confused. This is a simple double flow only. Okay, so if it is rejected, then the customer, that row will not flow here. That's the logic. You could also, you could have combined this to logic in a single graph function and created it. The reason why I created two different functions is, you can see here, if I combine these two logic, yeah, let me complete 1 second. If I combine these two logic and I create a single graph function, then for this logic I cannot use that graph function. Okay, so that is why I created a logic for this and a logic for this, and I'm combining that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Why don't we connect the reject null first from the name and then to the cleanse name?
Reject name, sorry,
And
which one? Reject name.
yeah, reject name, and
Uh-huh.
from the reject null to the cleanse name,
Yeah, you can also do.
because anything that is null automatically gets rejected.
Yeah, that's what you can also do it this way. This is also fine.
Yeah,
This is some,
because yeah, I don't know which one will invoke first or
no, both. That's what I'm telling you, right? You, if you can do it this way, you can also do it that way. Both are fine. It will work. Both will work properly. You can test it.
no, in terms of performance or reducing the number of rejects. Rejects happen initially, no? If it is basically null, those records will be automatically filtered.
Correct. Yeah, you can do it that way also. That's fine. But
But
I
I
just
don't
showed
think.
you that
Can we
you,
test this?
uh,
If test this, my hunch is it should not pass.
no, it will, there won't be any problem. It should work. Both are actually same. It really does not matter much. Give the name here. Then this is cleansed. And if I do not give anything, then I should get a message. So this is fine. You can create it in any ways. I just wanted to show you that in Power Center, you have a specific logic that you need to connect the output port to something, otherwise that will fail. But here, you can see here in this function, even if you don't connect, it does not matter.
So some of the IDQ functionality is being leveraged here, I guess.
Yeah, this cleanse list, all this are just IDQ functionalities, but this has nothing to do with IDQ. The reason is IDQ was developed separately and this was purchased separately. So the developers who developed this technology, yeah, they are completely different from the IDQ people. But yes, a lot of IDQ features are here. Okay, so you can use it this way, that way, whatever it is, but this is better. Now moving to the alias.
I mean, basically in terms of readability, it will be easy now.
Yeah, it will be easy, and from performance point of view also it will be better, but you don't need to worry about performance. The reason is only very less values will be rejected actually per day, so that is fine. But whichever you feel it proper, so do it. Now we'll move to the second one. The second one, we do not need to do anything because already we created the logic here, so we're just going to use it. So just call this cleanse name and simply use it. That completes the requirement for the second part. Okay, so this two part is done. Now moving on, saving it quickly, moving on to the next one, status. So status is coming from the status from the landing table, but what you have to do, use cleanse list to translate. It's already given technically what you need to do. For example, here it is, it's not given technically that what you need to do, so you have to decide. You have to go with cleanse list or what, so you need to decide. Here it's already given, so what you do is, what is the thing, 01, then if it is coming from the source as 01, then convert it to active, 02 inactive, and for remaining you translate it to unknown. So that's the objective. So to implement this logic what we are talking about, we have to create a cleanse list, and in the cleanse list we are simply going to translate the status. This will be a very simple cleanse list. I'll show you. You go
Uh,
here.
Sunil, while defining that remove noise and all,
uh
so what is the criteria to come up with kind of defining all the different types of characters and all?
Character criteria will depend upon organization to organization. Some will consider, for example, Informatica already gives something as noise and noise plus functions. They will come with the product. You can see here in the noise function, these are all the characters that are there, and in the noise plus, okay, this noise plus, they are using this noise only, so this, and in company noise, these kind of things characters. So this will depend from organization to organization. Normally this will not be constant, because from country to country, in some country you will have some characters that is permitted. So that depends. If it's a generic population, then you do not need to even create this. You can just go ahead with this one. I created this one. I could also have enhanced this one, but I wanted to show you how you can create it, so I created it.
So basically, is this MDM supporting multinational customers into one domain, or do we need to create separate
No, no,
instances
no.
for
You can
different?
create more than 240 population, like country population, you can support at single time, especially in the matching also. So supporting here is not a big deal, but supporting the matching is it's a big deal, because
Yeah.
that's the complicated part. Because in matching, things are not same. I mean, if you match according to one population, it will match. If you match the same thing based on another population strategy, it will not match.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
that I'll
that's
tell
what.
you.
So if I have two customer IDs, one in US and one in China,
Yeah, let's say Sunil
I
is in India and
mm-hmm.
Amit is in US and uh, Lin is in China. Okay, so what you can do is you can configure the mapping. For example, there is something called as zip underscore pop. So you need to create a manual column like zip underscore pop, okay, in the base object, and you need to specify in this zip and pop INDIA for this row, for and US for this row, and China for this row. So the matching strategy for this row will be Indian, for this row will be US, and for this row will be Chinese. For every row you
Okay.
have control on what type of matching you can do, what population if you want to use.
Okay.
Okay, we'll
So
talk
for the
about.
noise, we need to code all those characters that have been specified in the function so
Yeah,
that anything
whatever
that
you
comes.
feel as noise. For example, Informatica considers this as noise. So I already told you, right? I just added this few list, and whatever you feel as other thing like equal to, plus, minus, all those things,
Okay.
you can add on later.
Okay.
Okay, now let's create a cleanse list to implement the status. So CL translate status. I'm giving the name as translate status because that's what we are trying to do. Or you can also say, instead of translate, STD, because this is we are doing some standardization, right? So you can also say like this.
What is that property secure resource?
Secure resource, I already told you, right? There are two types of resources in MDM. One is a private resource, and second one is a secure resource. When you create anything that you create, okay, so let's say if you want to create a graph function or anything, so you can see this is automatically ticked on. It is ticked on means this is called as a secure resource. If I remove this, it becomes a private resource. Okay, so this is how you can create and secure private resource. And in the SAM security access manager, you can convert private to secure, secure to private. But private means actually this cannot be accessed outside MDM hub.
Or in specific to any specific mapping?
Uh-huh.
Wait, once we uncheck the option, it is specific to that mapping or?
Yeah, that's what I'm coming to that. I'm telling you all the things. The private means it cannot be accessed outside MDM. It means especially SIF and IDD. This cannot be accessed. Once if you make something as private, it cannot be accessed in SIF, SIF, and IDD. You cannot access it. Okay, and in any other external application, you cannot access it. As well as other users who have cannot see this private resource. Okay, but if
Okay.
you make it
Okay.
as secure, this is accessible. See, accessible means you can access it if you provide privilege, but for private resources you cannot also provide privilege if it is private. But for secure resource, if you give privilege, then this is accessible in SIF, IDD, as well as other users can also access this. So for IDD, blindly you need to make it secure only, otherwise you will be in trouble. So
Okay.
IDD and SIF, if you want to use any objects in IDD and SIF, you must make it as secure. And in fact, you should always create all the objects as secure only. Private you should not create, because later, let's say in IDD, if you're unable to see this particular object, suddenly it will not come to your mind that that object could be private, and you will search for few hours, then you will find out that yes, the problem was this object was private, that's why I cannot see that in IDD.
No. Thank you.
So STD status standardization. So this is very simple. What I'm doing is 012 active, 022 inactive, and I'll create an exhaustive list. Exhaustive list means active to active as well. Otherwise it will result in no match, and I don't want that. Inactive to inactive. Unknown, what is unknown? Unknown means if it is anything else, then it should come as unknown, and we cannot include that here. Okay, we have to do something here. So first let me test it. 0 1 fine, 0 2 observe the output. Okay, inactive true, and if I give as active, then it will come as active. So this requirement is working as fine till this one. Till this one it is working fine. Now let's test the unknown codes. I mean, for remaining, what is I'm getting? For example, remaining means I give anything. Okay, apart from 0 1 active, inactive, 0 2. Then what is the output I'm getting? I'm getting the matched as null, match flag is false, and output is same as input. That's fine. Output is same as input, but observe the match because this is important. The match is coming as null. So what I'll do now, I'll give this unknown. Okay, so you just see this. The match flag is coming as unknown. If it is unknown, and if it is 0 1, 0 1, then the match flag is working properly. So you understood, right? The only parameter that we need to use in this cleanse list is default value as unknown. So now let's complete this requirement. Let's go to the mapping and use this cleanse list. Call this cleanse list, and the status to the input. What did I say? You do not need to connect any of these values except default value. Just mention unknown as default value. So add a constant unknown. Okay, and simply connect it. And now you need to use the matched one, not the output. Remember, you're not going to use the output, you are going to use the match. I don't need to test it, I think, but when you create the code, you make sure you test it and then you proceed to the next step. Okay, so this requirement is also done. The final requirement is the party type. Okay, so the party type, uh, one-to-one mapping, no cleansing. So party type, I simply need to connect to party type, but the problem is accept only person or organization. So if I get person or organization, then only accept it. If it is, let's say, XYZ, then reject it. You understand, right? If it is coming as either person or organization, then only accept it, and if it's coming as anything else, then reject it. Can you tell me how can I implement this logic? How do I implement this logic? This logic is similar to the above functionality only. Okay, this functionality, whatever we are doing now, is same as this one. Here we are unknown. For rest of the remaining codes, we are converting it to unknown. But here we won't convert it to unknown. What we'll do is we'll check if it is in the list or not. If in the list, okay. If not in the list, reject. That's what we are trying to do. So what we'll do, how do we implement this? You go here, you can directly create the code here. Okay, or if you want, you can create a graph function and you can do that. Okay, so, but I'll do it here itself, because we are almost done except the last requirement. So how do I do it? You have to create a cleanse list. So first of all, create a cleanse list. So I'll create one more cleanse list. And what do I want to do now? Check the requirement. What do I want to do? I want to check person organization. Okay, so this is a very simple cleanse list. CL, then what's the name for it? What is the party type? Validate party type. Okay, so that's what I want to do. See, the requirement, the logic is very simple. Okay, what I need to do is I just need to add person here and convert that to a person, and if it's organization, convert that to organization. Okay, and go here. If it is person, check what is the output. Person true. If it is organization, it will be the same thing, but let's say I give any random value like this. Okay, I give any random value like this. Now what will happen? The match flag is coming as false. Now we have to create a logic to read this match flag and to reject the record. That means the we have to just see step by step, try to list down all the steps. What I have to do is first use cleanse list, okay, to get the match flag. And once I get the match flag, what I'll do with it, if true, okay, then no action, okay, and if false, what is the action? Reject the record. This is what I want to do now. Okay, so to accomplish it, what I'll have to do now, you better create a cleanse function here rather than doing the logic there. I think it will grow big. So create a graph function, say g validate party type. Okay, I'm creating the cleanse function, and what I'll do here, I'll use the cleanse list, and I'll use this and these three logics I'll create now inside the graph function. We'll finish the class with this requirement, and you go through this requirement are actually similar to this but not exactly same, especially this one requires the lookup functionality that you might not be able to do. But what you do is, whatever you try to do, whatever I did today, okay, you try to create these requirements today, and once you succeed, then proceed with this. Okay, tomorrow I'll cover this in high level, like wherever it is complicated, I'll cover that. So first, what do I do is I add the cleanse list. This cleanse list I added, and the input is person or organization. Okay, now what I need to do is I need to check the match flag. If match flag is true, no action. If match flag is false, then what I need to do, see, to do that, I have to what? I have to convert this boolean to string, because this boolean cannot be used in conditional execution. So I have to convert this back. So add a function, data conversion boolean. This already I have done it. So I'll just directly do it. Match flag to boolean. Then I will give a meaningful name. Not necessary, but still I'm giving a meaningful name. So what is the thing? True means proceed. Okay, so true means proceed, and add constant. False means reject. Okay, that's what I want to do. So if you want, you can, before you proceed to the reject logic, you can test it once quickly. You can test it. So person, what is expected? What I'm expecting? Person, proceed. Sorry, person means proceed, and anything else reject. So this is working fine. Now the final step is to use the conditional statement and the rejection logic. Okay, how do I do that? I simply need to create a conditional statement. Okay, we have already done it, that was for null, not null, and this one is for proceed. If you want to do anything with the proceed, then you can do that. We are not doing anything. Reject. So reject, you add a reject function here. Okay, it's very simple. Connect this to here and just add a value that what you want to do. So what's the reason? Why do I want to reject? Rejecting account type not in valid
So
list.
is party type.
Oh, sorry, account type, party type. Party type is not in the valid list. If you give whatever description you like, if you want, you can give complete thing like it's not in person or organization. You can also give. That's more meaningful. Or the better is generic is not in valid list. So okay, connect this to the text, and it does not matter this output, so I'm not connecting it anyway. And you connect this to here. Okay, so validate. Now it's almost done. What you need to do is you can directly connect the output you can take it from the matched, or you can take it from the input also, that is fine. Both ways are fine. So if it is this, then it should be rejected. Party type not in the valid list, and if I give person, then it should output should be person. So this is working fine. I simply need to use this in the mapping. G welded party type. So add a function and say G welded party. Yeah, G welded party type. And we are almost done with the requirement. Okay, so this completes the requirement. Now you should do a full check. We just created this component and you need to do a unit testing on this. Okay, so the unit testing is it's an exercise for you, because I think I have already done mini unit testing. So you do the unit testing, you test the whole logic now. Okay, so I'll leave that as an exercise to you. You do the unit testing, full unit testing, and then you try to implement this address and contact as well. Most of the things are easy. This logic is slightly, it's not complicated, it's tricky. This is, you can easily implement. This is different, I think, but I have already given you hint last class. You can do this, and yeah, this you might not be able to do, which I'll demonstrate tomorrow's class, but you try to do it. Try to understand how it works. Okay, so with that we'll finish the class, and probably tomorrow we'll wrap up the cleansing. The whole cleansing part will wrap up. So you can see that the most of the functions we have used it, except this lookup function, which we'll use tomorrow. This read database, that is the lookup function, and remaining most of the functions we have almost used it inside this logic. Okay, so with that we'll finish the class today. If you have any doubts, yeah, Pawan.
Sir, do you have a class to go to? Sorry.
Sorry, class?
Do you have a class to go to? I had a question. I think
No,
it's
no, no.
already
I don't
time.
have class today, so you can ask.
So we were earlier talking about country mapping, right? I don't know what Venkat's point was. I think I did not get it. But what I was wondering is, right, codage is very much important when we are doing an integration service, right? So where do we, what is tell, a mapping always needs to know what data set it's working on, right? Is
Correct.
that what you're talking about for SIF? Because I was wondering, where do we tell the integration service what code page it has to take,
Sorry, what?
and basing on what code page it has to transform data,
What? code page it has to take and what code page. See this code page, whatever, see let's say if you want to support Chinese characters or these characters in the code page, then what you have to do is you have to change that in the database. For example, your NLS parameters are there, right? This national language settings in Oracle, you have to change the NLS setting in there. There isn't much configuration in MDM side. There isn't much that you have to do or you can do. Most of the settings has to be done on the Oracle database side. The multi-language support if you want to do.
That's
Okay.
at the storage type, no, at the time of inserting.
Correct.
But however, while reading the data from the landing to the staging,
Correct.
uh,
Yeah,
any
that's
config file where we have to mention that it is multi-byte or Unicode, that is a
see
32 bit.
multi-byte and all that. It's completely covered in here. The global settings,
Yeah, that's what in
No,
the
international bits.
configuration.
what what I'm wondering is Sunil, see, we have San Jose, right? It's
Uh-huh.
just not SANJOSA,
Uh-huh.
like we write in English. It's a Spanish name, right?
Correct.
So if we are trying to, you have lots of clients, especially with telecom and all, which if you see,
Correct.
even for product database, even for product, if you see, there are a lot of different products that are targeting for a global market.
Correct.
Those come into our database. Those come into our database. But how would the match? What I'm wondering is how would the match function know how would it compare when it doesn't know what where my issue is, I'm unable to understand if when we are going from consolidated indicator 4, 3, 2, 1, it has to compare all the records, right? And it
Correct.
doesn't even know what those records are. How would it compare? Something is not sitting well.
Doesn't even know means, I mean, it compares based on the tokenization. That's the process of tokenization that you'll learn later. Based on the tokenization, it will compare.
Right, but it still has to compare name to name, right?
Correct. Name to name.
And one name is sitting in Chinese character and one name is sitting in, like say
No, no,
English
no.
character.
That's what Murli asked, and that's what I clarified, right? So there is a concept called as multiple population. Okay,
So you
let's
mean like
say,
an admin setup, right?
yeah, that's an admin setup. It's multiple population. For example, you can find it here. Uh, okay, this is the multilingual setting. This is the population files and all that you have to configure. It's a for non US population, or let's say mix of population. Let's say you have Chinese, German, Japanese, let's say 4 5 different type of populations. And what you want to do for the Chinese guy, you want the matching to be Chinese style, and for US guy you want it to be English style, and for Japanese guy you want it to be Japanese style of matching. Then you have to create a column called as SIP underscore pop in the base object, and the SIP pop you have to populate China for the Chinese guy, and for US guy you need to populate US. So when it is trying to match, it will check the SIP pop. If it is empty, it will do the default population. Okay, it will take the default population. But let's say if you have written German here, then it will do the German style of matching. Okay,
Okay, it's clear now. You did say this before, but it was not clear, like I
this
was saying
is
before. It's
multiple population. You can, in the project also I'll show you multi population. You in here also in this project something around 7 different type of populations are supported. It should be there somewhere. 7 or 8 different type of population, like Australia, Germany, all these are supported, and the method is the same. You use this method. And regarding this, uh, see, international support is most of the things you just need to configure it in the database side. For example, NLS, LANG, LC, all these things. And the only change that you need to do in the Oracle's, sorry, in the MDM side is this: in C repos in here, you just need to enable the multi-byte. That's the only thing that you are going to do. That is column length in bytes indicator, that you need to change it. If you just change it, then it will process multi-byte. By default, it's single byte. If you want, you can change it to multi-byte.
Sunil, you mean to say that suppose one name has to be populated in 7 different international languages,
Mhm.
so 7 records will be created in the when we add the zip-pop column?
No, no, no. See, SIFPOP is just a column in the base object. You understand, right? It's a column in the
Yeah.
base object. What is the meaning of that? If you have 10 rows, then that 10 rows, the 10 different customers will have values, that is SIFPOP.
Okay.
This is just a column, it's nothing more than that. This will have value. You can specify the population type that you want. If you want Indian style of matching, you specify India. Let's say Sunil, you specify India in the base object there. How do you specify? You need to map this value from the landing table, or you can map a constant value from the landing table, and then you need to load that thing into the base object. Let's say John, you make it US. Lin Chan, you make it China. Okay, so when Informatica sees, and let's say this one, Ajay, there is no value, let's say. So here, Indian population will be used. Here, the US will be used for this guy, US style of matching. For here, Chinese style of matching will be used. And for this guy, it will be the default. Whatever population file you have set it as default, that is the population file that will be used. If you want to find the default, you can find in this table. See repos SSA population. Here if you go, then you will see the default population file, whichever is the default.
So basically, if data steward is one guy is in Japan, one is in China, and the same MDM instance is exposed to them
Yeah,
through the IDD, so it is all the English names will be exposed as China or Japan for
the
those.
IDD is configured. IDD is multi-population. For example, IDD you can configure. Actually, my IDD is not working properly, but the population is something that you can check still. I mean, population in this, you can see the language settings. Okay, the language setting. Yeah, you can see the language. You can change the language according to you, what you like.
uh, Yeah, that's what I mean. So basically, even though it is only stored in English in the underlying database, it can be viewed in different languages.
Yeah, that's correct. So that depends upon the multi-language that you are using. I mean, if you are using multi-byte for especially like Chinese and Japanese, multi-byte is mandatory. But for
Yeah.
European and US, you do not need multi-byte.
So my other question is, suppose there we are getting a data source from China, another data source from Japan, and a couple of data sources from US, Latin, and US.
You have to.
So when trying to do a merge process or consolidate this information, so how will Informatica try to do a match process? Will it convert into any hex values or?
Now see, the processing, first thing, there are two things. First is the processing. The processing will be multi-byte. So when it is multi-byte, everything is handled properly. So multi-byte is nothing but Unicode. Okay, Unicode is multi-byte. So if you make it Unicode, by default it will be handled. And when you do the matching style will depend upon, I mean the matching strategy will depend upon the SIP-POP. Okay, based on the SIP-POP, and uh, the matching will be done.
Okay, I mean to say each data source that we are receiving, we have to specify the SIP-POP default value
Yeah, if you want to
in the
enable,
learning table.
if you want to enable multiple population, then yes, you have to do.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of confusing, but I think once we get on
Yeah,
hands-on, we
normally
can get it.
multi-population will always be there, because normally all
Mhm.
any small company nowadays, they have business over more than 2 3 countries. So you will see multi-population, but it will be enabled by the administrator, and you will find an
Mhm.
additional column here that you need to map to the base object. For example, like SIF pop or something, you have to create an additional column here,
Yeah,
and
that's what.
that you need to map it based on this country or postcode or whatever derivation you need to map it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. With that, we'll finish the class then. You practice the lab, otherwise you're going to forget most of the stuff. Okay. Thank you guys.